Welcome to another episode of Game Changers for Government Contractors. If you are not familiar with the podcast or myself, I'll give you a quick intro and then we're going to jump into our topic today, which is talking about how to get contracting officers to listen and respond to you. So if you're not familiar with the podcast, we've been doing this for going on 11 years now, and our focus has been on getting you government contracting education, not only from myself, but from experts in this industry. So there's a lot of experts we've interviewed over the last 11 years, and I look forward to 11 more years of doing this for you. If you have a topic you'd like us to talk about, you can send in a note and I will look for an expert on that, or you can send me an expert and I'll try to get them on. My background has been in helping government contractors win contracts. So our focus with our team is looking at your business and helping you master the art and science of government sales. So if you are struggling, whether you're brand new to the market or whether you're 150 billion in revenue, it doesn't matter. We can bring in our team and we will help you master the art and science of government sales by helping you look at the business and figure out what you should be doing correctly. I don't want to talk anymore about that. I want to jump right into the topic for today. So we were recently doing a value mapping exercise in our business the other day for our Inner Circle team. That is our group coaching program that we have every Wednesday at 1:00. And as we went through the value mapping exercise and we're talking about how to find metrics and value for teams, the inevitable result was people said, okay, so now that I'm smarter about what my value is, how do I get contracting officers to listen to us? Well, part of it is just having your value clearly articulated in your marketing material and in your sales pitch and all that. But another one is this 3-part framework that I'm going to walk you through today. So you want to stick around for the 3-part framework. But first, I want to tell you a couple of reasons why contracting officers don't necessarily listen to most people. They don't return calls or emails because really it's not them, it's you. It's your message. If your message doesn't stand out, they don't have time for it. When we look at contracting officers, they are time starved. I have talked to a bunch of them that tell me they get anywhere from 200 to 250 emails a day, a ton of voicemails, and they just don't have the time to do this. So they don't have the time to respond to people. So their priorities are responding to things they're already working on, colleagues, current people under contract already, and then getting new RFPs on the street, not entertaining folks like yourself who are trying to knock on their door. So if they have time, they will. But the cure to that is fixing your messaging, getting the right messaging, having the right mindset, and approaching this properly. And so once you understand what's going on in a contracting officer's mind, it helps to be able to target their pain points. So remember first, they don't care about your company. They care about a couple of things. They are trying to fill requests, avoid headaches, and ultimately look good to their boss. That's really all it is. They are employees. They're not executives. They're not business owners. They are trying to do a good job so that they look good to their boss, avoid a lot of headaches, and they complete a request. Somebody's put a request for something on their plate. They're trying to do a good job figuring it out. And so if you are not speaking to the value you provide and how you avoid the headaches and all of those things, you're not speaking clearly to them. And that's a problem. And if you look like everybody else, then they feel you're like everybody else. There's a lot of people that come in, send one email, one voicemail. They never hear from them again. They do one job. It's not very good. They never hear from them again. And they don't want that. They want better relationships. They want better delivery. And so one of the things you need to be doing when you're doing your research is finding out what their pain points are, what their problems are, so that you can look at the value you provide and map that to their problems. And that gets us into this 3-part framework, which as I go through the 3-part framework here, I'm going to list that for you. Then we're going to dive into each one. Then I'm going to give you some examples at the end. And I think that's probably what's going to be really valuable for you today, is to hear the examples in action, not just hear the 3-part framework. So here's the 3-part framework. Number 1 is relevance. Number 2 is credibility. Number 3 is clarity. So let's talk about relevance here. Why should a contracting officer care about your message? And the best way to do that is to be relevant to them, to mention their specific agency, office, or program, and then tie that to their priorities. Like, hey, Steve, I noticed that your agency is working on this ABC mission contract, whatever it is, and we have done work similar to this in the past, blah, 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 blah. I've gotten in there very specific. I mentioned Steven, not just, hey there, or whatever. I've seen a lot of people craft emails where they're copying, pasting their perfect email, if you will. And I'm using air quotes for the people that are just listening and not the ones watching on YouTube. They create this quote perfect email that they copy and paste and mass email out there. And it doesn't even include the contracting officer's name or office or any of that type of stuff. We've got to get relevant to them with their name, their mission, their office, something along those lines that speak to them, and then tie that into their priorities. If we're not doing that, then that's a problem. So that's relevance. Number two is credibility. Why should they trust you? A lot of times we want to use some sort of social proof. It could be past performance. It could be some agency familiarity. It could be teaming partners that you're working with. It could be just about anything, but you need to be specific. So like we're working with this agency's data migration and we're doing their IT, whatever services. I've been speaking with Bob Smith over at your agency, and we really did a good job for him. He said I should reach out to you. Those are social proof things. Like we did a contract similar to some things that I know that you're working on. We did that for Department of Defense. We did it for the Air Force. We did it for whoever. And, here are some of the results we got. I think you'd be really impressed with some of our past performance. You've got to start speaking to the problem, but also bringing in some credibility why they should trust you. And it's even good sometimes to create some links in your emails that are towards testimonials or quotes or things like that that show you've done work and here's how happy the customer was for you. The next thing is clarity. A contracting officer needs to quickly understand what you're talking about. We need to ditch the buzzwords and we need to ditch the high level language. The average person you're speaking to may only read and write at a 6th or 8th grade level. They may read and write at a higher level. They may only comprehend this stuff at a 6th or 8th grade level. We need to use plain English. So you get rid of the buzzwords, get rid of the jargon, and use very simple language. Like here's an example. It's like we eliminate duplicate records in HR systems, reducing manual rework by 40%. That's pretty clear, right? Of what a company does. It's plain English of what they do. Look at your language and see, is it buzzwordy? Is it too difficult? Is it too high level? How can you explain it at a much simpler level? And if you can do that, that will allow them to go, oh, okay, here's what they do. So here's an example of one where it's not clear. And it also starts off with something that I don't agree with. And we'll walk through this here in a second. Here's an example of what a lot of people would say. We're a woman-owned cybersecurity firm offering a full suite of proactive and reactive security solutions. What did I just say there? You have no clue what I just said. It sounds like a really good piece of marketing material. It sounds impressive, but I really didn't communicate anything. And I led with my value being that I'm a woman-owned business. That's not the value. That's not the value you provide. There's other value you provide. So here's a refined version of that statement. The statement will be, we've helped a DHS sub-agency stop 4 ransomware attacks last year by automating patching across 12,000 endpoints. It's very clear. It talks about value they provided and the work they do. It's very, very clear. So you have to get clarity like that in your messaging so that it's very clear. You're relevant by talking to them about their agency or mission. You've got some credibility with some social proof from past performance, and you have clarity on who you are and what you do. And when you follow that 3-part framework of relevancy, credibility, and clarity, you should come up with sentences like I just shared with you around, like the one of, we helped the DHS sub-agency stop 4 ransomware attacks last year by automating patching across 12,000 endpoints. It becomes so clear what that company does. Now, here's kind of the bonus section of the podcast today. A lot of people can come up with one or two examples like this that they can send to a contracting officer or voicemail to a contracting officer. The struggle is coming up with multiple pieces of content like this. So what I did the other day, as an example, and you'll notice we eat our own dog food here. We're following these examples. What I did the other day was I created an article based on the pain point that I had noticed from several of our clients. Several of our clients had told us about horror stories of working with other consultants and coaches in the industry. And I said, so tell me about that. And we just kind of dug in and talked about their pain points for that. And I outlined about 4 or 5 main key issues that they have with consultants. So I took those 4 or 5 and I said, well, what are the solutions to that? I was like, oh, we'll come back to that in a minute. So I said, here are the 4 pain points. Here are the 4 or 5 things to look for in a really good consultant. And then here are the 4 or 5 things that a good consultant should do. And oh, by the way, that's our framework for working with a client. So I took that one piece of content and created roughly 14 bullet items based on that. Each one of those bullet items now becomes a call, an email that you can send a prospect. So if you were to look at your clients, what are the 4 or 5 areas that they struggle with contractors that do what you do? What are the 4 or 5? It may be 6 or 7 things. Then what are the things they should be looking for in a contractor that does what you do, that you also do? Then what are the 4 or 5 solutions to their problems? Maybe there's 10 solutions to their problems. Now you've got a list of almost 20 things that you can email a contracting officer just by doing that little exercise. And you can email them and say, hey, I know that you have problems with contracting officers with this and blah, 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 blah. And here's how we're different. And then you can send the next one. You can almost set up a campaign over 12, 24, 27 weeks, whatever it may be, based on that. Then you look at, well, what's another problem they have? What's another problem they have? Or what's another solution we have? And you can really just create content, and I say content, sales content, sales scripting based on their problems and based on the value you provide. And now you've got campaigns you can do for weeks and weeks and weeks to send contracting officers. Because one of the things that I have heard for ages, and I believe this holds true today, given all of the input that people have from marketing and materials and things like that, it takes around 27 touches for someone to remember your name and your brand. That's just to remember your name and brand. They may not even remember what you do or know what you do based on that. So if it takes around 27 touches, that's roughly 6 months of marketing them to get them to remember your brand. So we've got to come up with a campaign that's roughly 6 months long of content we're dripping in there. And you can mix in not just content, you can mix in questions about things that you saw. Hey, I saw this on your forecast. Just trying to check and make sure this is still a thing. Are you still working on it? Is the deadline good? Hey, I saw this sources sought, or I saw this RFP. I had a quick question. It's still in the Q&A period. You get to mix in your sales content with your specific questions and focus on that for 6 months. That's what you've got to do. And not just focus on it on email and voicemail, but focus on doing some of those things via LinkedIn to them. Now, don't send them a LinkedIn message every week for 6 months. Don't do that. If you've got something relevant, something very specific, you saw that they posted on LinkedIn, or you saw something that's good for them, maybe you send them something on LinkedIn every other week, once a month, something like that. Be careful about how much you use that, but use it. And comment on their stuff, share their stuff. That's what you can be doing on a daily, weekly basis, commenting and sharing their posts. I had one of our clients the other day was on our inner circle where we shared this session. And by the way, that's another reason to be on our inner circle. You get this stuff months ahead of the podcast. So that's always really good. But we were on the session and she said she had been walking around at a conference, met someone, and they said, your name. And it clicked. They're like, oh, you comment and share all of our stuff on LinkedIn. And like, oh, that clicked. And it was instant credibility, instant rapport, because they remembered who she was from LinkedIn, and it made a difference in the relationship. And they took them over to the CEO to talk to them. So relevance, credibility, clarity. Those are three things you need. And sales content that you can use to talk to your contracting officers. If you are doing that, I guarantee you, if you're 2 months, 3 months, 6 months in, you will see a spike in the amount of people who are actually engaging you. And I just did a podcast, I think it was episode 383, where we talked about the four levers of your business. So there's people in education, delivery. What was the other ones? I don't remember what I'm talking about. Systems and technology was the one I was thinking about in here. And if you are really focused on those things, you will see a jump. Oh, testing and measuring was the one. That's the one I was wanting to talk about. Testing and measuring, you will see a jump in the amount of discussions and the amount of connections that you make by sticking with something for 6 months and continually showing up in their inbox, on their voicemail, in their LinkedIn. Eventually, they're going to say, look, let's go ahead and talk. Or, hey, I've, filed an order of protection against you, and yet you can no longer speak to me. One of those two things are probably going to happen. But what you want to see is just the consistency of connecting with those people, having conversations that matter to them, and delivering on that. You do that, I guarantee you 6 months from now, you're going to be blown away with how many contracts you actually have in your pipeline. If you have questions about any of this, or you need help crafting that content, you need help crafting that message, reach out. We're here to help with this kind of stuff. Until then, I hope you really enjoyed this episode of Game Changers. If you loved it, I'd love for you to, number one, go share a review on Apple Podcasts, and number two, share it with a friend. Share it with somebody that you think might get some value out of this. And I'll see you next time.